If we saw there, shells just finished up. Weapons level 1 on his ships are coming down. A ton of cannons are down, and that's one thing that the Protoss has had to spend his money on, is a lot of cannons due to these Banshees. The Terran player is now floating a lot of minerals now that he is max at 200, 200, but his upgrades are really not that impressive. 0, 0, 0, 0 on his mech, and it's going to soon be 1, 0 on his Banshees as soon as this finishes, but that's not for a little while. So maybe the upgrade advantage will help the Protoss player as he's at +3, in addition to all these Templar and a bunch of Archons on the field. Marauders are moving in here, going to be able to snipe this Nexus in all likelihood. If he's watching this fight, the Nexus is going to go down easily, and he's going to get a lot of easy kills on these workers. But the Banshees are in here causing some messes as well. Feedback on a couple of the Banshees, and that is one thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that you can feedback the Banshees. But big transfer going on here, or rather not a transfer, distance mining on these probes. They're walking into a meat grinder of units here for the Terran player, and these probes need to just kind of hide behind the shelter of these cannons while the Protoss player recovers. But a two-pronged attack going on here. These Banshees are really messing up Protoss main, completely whiffing on a storm right there, whiffing on another storm. He finally lands another one, and he's getting some good damage off here with nothing but these Templars. Another storm lands, taking down a bunch of Banshees, about 3 or 4 Banshees falling right there, and a bunch more in the red. One quick warp in of Stalkers would deal with the rest of these Banshees, and more storms going off, taking out all these Banshees. Two-pronged stuff going on here. Here's the main engagement we're going to see between the Thor and the Marauders. Thor Marauders and versus the Stalker Archon mixture. I have to think that the Thor Marauder is going to come out slightly on top here, but here come the upgrades. Upgrades are really kicking in here, and the Protoss player actually cleans this up. So, wow. I mean, the Protoss player actually did lose 2 bases. There's still one that's not mining. In terms of economy, he's way behind, 83 to 38 in terms of workers. So, it's huge disparity right there. You have to think the Terran player is still way in the advantage, doing enough damage with his Marauders and his Thor and his Banshees, even though I felt like the Protoss actually handled that pretty well. It's a really crazy unit composition we're seeing out of this Terran player. There's another Thor about halfway done in production. More Marauders on the field, more Banshees being repaired by these SCVs, and the Protoss player is really struggling to try to get back in this game. You can see that these upgrades really had a lot to do with how that outcome happened. Usually if you saw Thor Marauder versus basically almost all Stalker, you would think that the Thor Marauder is just going to roll him, but the upgraded disadvantage because of all the different kinds of units he's running is really hurting him. Big storm landed on these Marauders and on the top of the Banshees. These are awesome storms, really taking down these Marauders fast. And look at the standing army for the Protoss now. He's still well behind the supply, but he is winning this fight handily. He does kill an expansion. He is moving in here with a fair amount of reinforcements. There's more Banshees coming out here on the field. And I don't think that this Protoss player actually has detection, but he can storm these Banshees even when they're cloaked. So if you have a good eye for seeing where these are, you can go ahead and storm these down and get a lot of free damage on there. There's 6 more Templars warping in, as we do see them all running around in a pack right there. So this Protoss player is doing okay to stay in this game. He just got hit so hard by those Banshees that I feel like he's too far behind to really catch up here. And this Terran player is really staying on top of his macro, but whoops, here's a huge misclick on these SCVs. They're actually all following one SCV. You can see them all gravitating like, oh, they're not actually mining. They're just following each other back around, not doing anything. So in terms of income, the disparity is actually not nearly what it should be. Protoss player is behind by over or almost 30 workers, but he's actually ahead in income. So, whoops, there's a huge mistake there from our Terran player, really the first one he's made this game. Other than getting his Banshees kind of pinned over here earlier in the first attack that he made, Banshees are going to move in here and try to take down these Stalkers. One thing I want to quickly address before any more big engagements happen is that if you're Terran, you're running mech, you're running starport units, and you're running bio. Your upgrades are spread way too thin. You can see there's 0, 0, 0 on these Thors, 1, 0 on the air units, and 1, 1 on the bio. Whereas Protoss can focus their upgrades much better. You can see that the Stalkers are now at 3, 1, and even with 3 on these Archons, they're really going to melt Marauders quite handily. These Marauders don't do any sort of bonus damage or slow these Archons at all. Here comes a huge engagement. This Terran player is pulling off a ton of SCVs to follow this army around and repair it as this damage happens. But if you get some nice storms off, as you can see him landing storms all over these Banshees, all over the Marauders, all over the SCVs, this is really going to help him even out this fight. Another storm goes off, killing up a whole pack of Marauders. Feedback on the Thors. But this Protoss player is really just wearing thin here on his unit count. 2 Archons being more, but they're going to be taken out before they actually do anything. So the Protoss player really clawed his way back into this, but the Terran player is just too strong. The Terran player is really taking command of this game right now, even though he lost a ton of SCVs. The Protoss player can still come back. I'm not trying to write him off or anything, but he is fairly far behind, especially in supply. 173 to 90 supply. This Terran player is going to get sandwiched between some cannons and the army of the Protoss player. The Protoss player is really cutting down these Thors. You can see with that 0 armor and the +3 on these Zealots, it's really going to go through them like butter. Which is funny to say since Thors are so huge. Banshees are still in here wrecking up the main, trying to take down the Protoss' reinforcements while the Terran player recovers. So 59 workers to 50. You can see the Terran player did recover. No, he denied. There's still a bunch of SCVs following around that one SCV. So a really bad mistake there, even though I love this unit composition out of this Terran player that we're seeing. Huge blink forward to take down these Stalkers, or rather take down these Banshees. Banshees just sacrifice themselves and say, we're done, we give up. One Banshee does get out of there with 29 health, but this is shaping up to be a really back and forth game. The Protoss player is still well behind in supply, 170 to 105, but he is able to hold off these huge pushes from this Protoss, or from this Terran player, purely due to upgrade advantage. He's now at 3-2, whereas the Terran player has 3 different upgrade paths in order that he has to worry about to try and beef up his army. Really, I'd like to see his armory spinning a upgrade on his armors, or rather on his mech's armor. Here's another huge scary push. It just seems like with as many pushes as this Terran player is going to make while he's maxed, the Protoss player just can't keep affording to hold on, or rather try to hold on against this, especially since he's going for a lot of expansion canceling pushes, and while also being very smart with his Banshees and taking down as much power inside the Protoss main as possible. He does get a scan off on this army to see exactly what's coming. The Templars are going to move in here. The Templar work is really going to save him here if he's able to. He does feedback a Thor, land a Storm on top of all these Banshees and the Marauders. So with this heavy air, ground unit composition, the Storms actually do double the work than what they would if somebody was just running ground. But still, you can see the resiliency of this Terran army just because of the sheer raw power out of here. Thor, Marauder, Banshee, such a devastating composition. Here come more Templars pushing up here with some Zealots. I do believe the Zealots have charge. Yes, they do. But the Thors are going to come over here and try to pick off any Templars if they can help it. But the feedback does go off. Thors are going to start melting this Zealot fire. Here come the Templars once again. Marauders stim up after canceling this expansion. It's 2 expansions down during this push. You can see the longevity of this army is really paying off. He's now kiting these Zealots very, very well. Supply lead is still showing. MangoNinja still way ahead. And more reinforcements are streaming out here. These Marauders can't kite forever, especially since they're getting so low and he overstims, and these units are going to come in here and clean them up. Look how much damage these Archons do on top of these Marauders that do not have any extra armor upgrades. But look at this. I mean, as soon as he finishes that off, he's ready for more. He starts putting out more units and he's ready to push again. Supply is going to show pandaBee way behind. He's now behind by almost 90 supply. In terms of workers, it's 75 to 37, so more than double his workers. And economy alone, 2,600 mineral income versus 700. That's just devastating. Here comes another push, another small skirmish here. But a great storm goes off, actually storming a lot of his Zealots down. But since this Terran player is going very marine heavy right now, he would actually be wise to scan, take down this observer, but nevertheless, the Protoss player finally quits after being exhausted out of this game. He had really no mining going on whatsoever except for at this expansion, but that was a really cool unit composition coming out. Thor, Banshee, Bio, either Marauders or Marines. Almost exclusively Marauders there for a while. But that's such a power-packing unit composition right there. Again, the only trouble is that he was not spinning his upgrades very well on all of his units. But nevertheless, it got the job done. It beat a Protoss player that frankly was using excellent storms, really responding to this well, even though it's so unusual and so hard to deal with. So cool game. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm going to go ahead and stop casting for the night since I'm really exhausted, and since we've seen some cool games already. I hope you guys enjoyed them all, and if you haven't seen them all, obviously go back and watch them. Subscribe to me if you want to see a lot more cool games in the future. I will be signing out for the time being. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.